Welcome back to the channel. USA Coins 69, thought of it as just another everyday coin, something to use for parking meters, vending machines, or to drop into a tip jar. But what if I told you that one particular quarter from 1965, with the right mint mark and in the right condition, could be hiding a secret so valuable that it could change the way you look at pocket change forever? That's right. A coin that's been sitting quietly in someone's drawer or jar for decades might just be worth a small fortune, and today, we're diving deep into the incredible story of the 1965 Washington quarter, how it came to be, why certain versions are rare, and what makes them worth serious money to collectors all over the world. The year 1965 was a major turning point in American coinage history. Up until 1964, Washington quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them a beautiful luster and a distinct sound when dropped on a table. But with silver prices skyrocketing in the early 1960s and the U.S. Mint facing a coin shortage, the government made a drastic decision. They removed silver from the quarter entirely, switching to a copper-nickel-clad composition. This change sparked controversy among the public and coin enthusiasts at the time, and as you can imagine, whenever there's a big change like this, rare and valuable varieties have a way of slipping through the cracks. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most 1965 quarters you'll find are the standard copper-nickel versions that millions of Americans used every single day. But there are a few incredibly rare versions that were struck on leftover silver planchets intended for 1964 quarters. This happened because some silver blanks remained in the mint's machinery during the production transition, and they accidentally got stamped with the 1965 date. These transitional error quarters are the holy grail for collectors, and they're so scarce that finding one is almost like hitting the jackpot in the world of numismatics. Another important factor is the mint mark. In 1965, quarters were officially struck without mint marks, but certain experimental or error pieces linked to specific mints have become highly sought after. Combine that with pristine condition, we're talking uncirculated or proof-like quality, and you've got a coin that can command eye-watering prices at auctions. Imagine walking into a coin shop or visiting an auction and seeing a plain-looking quarter on display, except it's not so plain once you realize it's one of these extremely rare silver-struck 1965 quarters. Collectors and investors get into heated bidding wars over these pieces, not just because of their rarity, but because they represent a unique moment in U.S. minting history, the exact year America said goodbye to silver quarters. If you're wondering how to tell if your 1965 quarter might be one of these rare treasures, here are a few tips. First, check the weight. A standard copper-nickel 1965 quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, but a silver version will weigh slightly more at around 6.25 grams. You can also look closely at the edge of the coin. Most modern quarters will show a distinct copper-colored stripe along the edge, but silver quarters have a solid, uniform silver edge with no copper showing. Of course, for absolute certainty, you'd want a professional coin grader or numismatist to examine it. These rare quarters aren't just valuable for their silver content, their worth comes from the combination of historical significance, rarity, and condition. Coins in pristine, high-grade condition with no wear can sell for astonishing amounts, especially if they're verified as silver transitional errors or have unique striking features. The higher the grade, the more collectors are willing to pay, sometimes reaching prices that seem unbelievable for a single piece of metal. Today, we're stepping back into the exciting world of American coinage to uncover the fascinating story behind one of the most intriguing pieces you might come across, the United States of America Washington quarter dollar from 1967 with a mint mark. Now, this is not just any quarter. This coin hides a story that mixes history, design, rarity, and collector obsession into one small but valuable package. By the time we get to the end, you'll understand exactly why this quarter has captured the attention of coin enthusiasts everywhere. Let's start with the backdrop of this fascinating year. In 1967, the United States was buzzing with cultural change and political challenges. It was a time of innovation, creativity, and bold moves. The Washington quarter had already been a familiar face in circulation since 1932, honoring the nation's first president. But the mid-1960s brought some big shifts in the coin world. Just a couple of years earlier, silver had been removed from circulating quarters, moving to a copper-nickel composition because of rising silver prices. That meant coins from this era had a very different feel compared to their older, heavier silver cousins. The 1967 Washington quarter, especially with a mint mark, holds an interesting place in history because the government had temporarily suspended mint marks during the mid-1960s to discourage coin hoarding. But in certain cases, variations and anomalies crept in, making specific examples with a mint mark far more scarce than most collectors expect. That's where the thrill of the hunt begins. On the obverse side, the portrait of George Washington faces left, a design by John Flanagan that has become an icon of American coinage. Every detail, the curve of his hair, the sharpness of the lettering, tells a story about the condition of the coin and the care it has received over the decades. Flip it over, and you'll see the bold heraldic eagle on the reverse, wings spread proudly, clutching arrows and an olive branch. It's a timeless image that speaks of strength and peace. Now, what makes a 1967 Washington quarter with a mint mark truly stand out is not just the design, but the combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand. Many of these coins were heavily circulated, rattling around in pockets, purses, and cash registers for years. As a result, finding one in uncirculated or near-perfect condition is like striking gold. And for collectors, the addition of an unusual mint mark in a year when they were largely absent makes this an irresistible target. There's also the exciting possibility of unique minting errors, off-center strikes, double dies, or planchet flaws, that can send the value soaring even higher. These small imperfections transform a regular quarter into a one-of-a-kind treasure that seasoned collectors are willing to pay a premium for. Today, we're diving into the world of United States coinage to explore an often overlooked but truly fascinating piece, the Washington quarter dollar from 1971 with a mint mark. This coin might seem like just another piece of change at first glance, but when you learn its story, you'll see why collectors across the country are eager to get their hands on one in exceptional condition. Stick with me until the end, because you might be shocked at how much one of these can be worth today. The year 1971 was an important one for the U.S. Mint and for American history in general. The Washington quarter had already been in production for nearly 4 decades, originally introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. By the 1970s, the coin had firmly established itself as a staple of everyday transactions, but subtle variations and special mint mark editions from this period have made certain 1971 quarters stand out from the rest. During this time, the quarter was composed of a copper-nickel clad, replacing the 90% silver composition that had been used in earlier years. This change had occurred a few years prior due to rising silver prices, but collectors still had their eyes peeled for coins with exceptional strike quality, rare errors, or scarce mint marks. The presence of a mint mark, either D for Denver or S for San Francisco, adds an extra layer of intrigue for coin hunters. On the obverse, you'll find John Flanagan classic portrait of George Washington, looking to the left with the inscriptions, Liberty and, In God We Trust, above and to the side. It's a design so familiar that many people overlook it entirely, but when you study a well-preserved example, the sharp lines, fine hair details, and clear lettering stand out beautifully. On the reverse, the powerful heraldic eagle grips arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing America's readiness for defense and desire for peace. What makes the 1971 mint mark quarter exciting for collectors is a combination of factors: its historical context, scarcity in higher grades, and the occasional appearance of striking errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, or planchet flaws. These errors can turn a simple piece of pocket change into a highly sought-after rarity. Finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is no small feat, as most 1971 quarters were heavily circulated for decades, showing the usual scratches, nicks, and wear from everyday use. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating story of a coin that's been in the pockets of millions of Americans, yet few people realize it could be hiding a secret worth a small fortune. We're talking about the 1974 Washington quarter dollar with its mint mark, a coin that might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. Picture it, 1974. The United States was going through a remarkable period of change. The Vietnam War was coming to an end, political shifts were shaking the nation, and everyday life was buzzing with a mix of uncertainty and hope. Amid all this, the U.S. Mint continued its job of producing coins for circulation, including the Washington quarter, a design beloved and recognized since its introduction in 1932 to honor America's first president, George Washington. These quarters were minted in massive numbers, and to the untrained eye, they all looked the same. But as every coin collector knows, the devil is in the details. The 1974 Washington quarter carries the classic profile of George Washington on the obverse, with the inscriptions, "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," framing his image. Beneath his chin lies the mint mark, a small letter that reveals where the coin was made. For collectors, that tiny letter can make a massive difference in rarity and value. Quarters of this year were struck at multiple mints, and slight differences in strike quality, metal composition, or even tiny minting errors can turn a simple 25-cent piece into a treasure worth thousands. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the majestic American eagle with outstretched wings, perched proudly on a bundle of arrows, framed by olive branches, a symbol of strength balanced with peace. This reverse design had been used for decades, yet each year's coins hold their own unique variations due to the wear and re-engraving of the dies used in the minting process. Some 1974 quarters exhibit sharper details, while others reveal faint doubling, unusual die marks, or subtle shifts that can catch a collector's eye instantly. Now here's where things get exciting. While most 1974 quarters are worth face value, there's a tiny fraction that defy that rule. A combination of factors, extremely high-grade preservation, low mintage for certain mint marks, and rare minting anomalies, has pushed some examples into the realm of serious money. The truth is, most of these quarters went straight into circulation and lived long, hard lives, passed from hand to hand, scraped across counters, jingled in pockets, and clinked into vending machines. As a result, finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is almost like finding a needle in a haystack, and it's not just the shine or the absence of scratches that matters. In the world of numismatics, grading is everything. A 1974 quarter that's been graded at the highest possible levels, MS66, MS67, or beyond, is an entirely different animal from the average circulated piece. Add to that the right mint mark and perhaps even a rare error, and you have a coin that transforms from a simple bit of change into a collector's dream. Some of the rarest errors from this year include double strikes, off-center strikes, and dramatic die cracks that leave raised lines across the coin's surface. Others might have been struck on the wrong metal planchet entirely, resulting in a coin with a lighter or heavier weight than normal. These anomalies are highly prized because they're unintentional, limited, and impossible to recreate, meaning once they're gone from circulation, they're gone forever. Now imagine for a moment that you've had one of these coins all along, tucked away in a jar, or maybe hidden at the back of an old drawer. Perhaps it's been sitting in a coin album you inherited years ago, unnoticed. You pick it up, look closely at the mint mark, check the condition, and suddenly realize you're holding something extraordinary. That's the magic of coin collecting, the thrill of discovery, the rush of knowing you're holding a tangible piece of history that also has the potential to change your life. And that brings us to the part you've been waiting for. If you happen to have a 1974 Washington quarter dollar with the right mint mark, in flawless uncirculated condition, and possibly with a rare error, its value could soar to an incredible $60,000. Today, we're going to take a close look at a coin you've probably held in your hand dozens of times without thinking twice about it, the 1990 Washington quarter dollar with its mint mark. Most people see it as just another piece of everyday change, but in the world of collectors, this humble quarter has a fascinating story and, in some rare cases, a jaw-dropping value. So sit tight, because by the end of this journey, you might never look at a 1990 quarter the same way again. The year 1990 was an interesting time in the United States. It was the dawn of a new decade, a time of economic shifts, changing technology, and cultural milestones. The U.S. Mint, continuing a tradition dating back to 1932, produced the Washington quarter to honor the first President of the United States, George Washington. The design had been familiar for nearly 6 decades, yet each year brought subtle variations and characteristics unique to that mintage. On the obverse, the 1990 quarter still features the bold and dignified profile of George Washington. Above his head, the word "Liberty" stretches proudly across the top, while the national motto, "In God We Trust," stands firmly to the left. Below Washington's chin is the date, 1990, and right next to it, the mint mark. That tiny letter may be small, but it's the key to unlocking the story of where the coin was struck. Whether it's a P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or S for San Francisco, the mint mark can be the difference between a coin worth pocket change and one worth a collector's prize. Flip it over and you're greeted by a striking image that had defined the quarter for decades: the majestic bald eagle, wings outspread, perched on a bundle of arrows, framed by olive branches. This imagery perfectly captures America's balance between strength and peace. The detail in the feathers, the careful lines of the arrows, and the smooth curve of the olive branches can all vary slightly from year to year and even from die to die, subtle differences that sharp-eyed collectors look for. Now, here's where the story gets exciting. While millions of these quarters were struck in 1990, the vast majority went straight into circulation and endured years of wear and tear. They passed through vending machines, were tossed into tip jars, clinked together in countless pockets, and slid across store counters. Over time, they lost their mint luster, picked up scratches, and faded into the background of everyday life. But a small fraction escaped this fate. Some were set aside the moment they were minted, preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, their sharp details and original shine perfectly intact. Collectors know that high-grade coins, especially those graded at MS66, MS67, or higher, are not just rare, they're treasures. Add in the right mint mark, and you have something special. And then there's the possibility of minting errors, the wild cards of numismatics. Imagine a 1990 quarter struck slightly off-center, or with doubling in the inscriptions, or perhaps even on a planchet intended for a different coin altogether. These rare mistakes are virtually impossible to duplicate and can transform an already valuable coin into something truly exceptional. Finding one of these rarities is like striking gold. You could spend years sorting through rolls of quarters without ever seeing one, but for the lucky few who do, the reward is unforgettable. It's not just about the money, it's about holding a tangible piece of history, knowing that this coin is unlike almost any other in existence. So, if you've got a 1990 Washington quarter dollar, take a closer look. Check the mint mark. Examine its condition under good lighting. Look for anything unusual in the lettering, the date, or the design. Because if you have the right combination, a flawless uncirculated coin, the right mint mark, and perhaps even a rare error, its value could reach an astonishing $67,000. Coins like these remind us that history, art, and treasure can be hiding in the most ordinary of places, even in the change you get from your morning coffee. So keep your eyes open, because you never know when you might discover your own piece of numismatic gold.